Well, hi there. I'm Larry Totzke, and this is View from the Pew. I'm here today with someone who needs absolutely no introduction, at least to me. But she may need some introduction to you, so this is my wife, Sylvia.
Hi there.
Thank you, Syl, for doing this with me today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I am too. Let's get after it.
Let's get after it, okay. We're here today to talk about a passage from Matthew chapter 6, continuing on in the Sermon on the Mount that Pastor Jeremy preached about on Sunday. And starting in verse 9, 19 rather, and this passage really is about priorities. And I think it's a really appropriate passage for us to talk about here as we begin a brand new year. So here's the passage. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth, rust, consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your hearts will be also. It continues, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? And finally, no one can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. And Jeremy, for each one of those sections, asked a different question. He said, for the first section, what are you investing in? And for the second section, he says, what are you gazing at? In the third section, he said, who are you serving? So we thought that we would take these one at a time and talk about how they have impacted, especially Sylvia and then both of us in our married lives. So Syl, when you hear this first question, what are you investing in? How did that prompt you?
Well, I was especially excited when Jeremy talked about the two emails or letters that he received. One would be the notice that the African young man accepted Christ and wanted to go to Bible school and then plant a church in his home village. And that was exciting to me because, as you know, I've spent a lot of time praying and thinking, and we've invested in the Central African Republic and the young people there. And then the second letter that he got stating that he had money coming to him, and I thought, how exciting would that be if that were our case? Because I could see that young man who I'd be very excited about and giving money in order to do his mission. Because right now we've invested in a school for orphans in the Central Africa in one of the villages, and I just can't even think about how exciting that would be if several or many of those 50 orphans who are learning to read and write and about God's Word would accept him and say, I want to serve him with my life. And to be able to have the resources to do it would be just amazing.
Yeah. And you know, when he said that I had that very same thought. Boy, we could use some of that $25,000 and help this young man pay for his Bible school. And what an investment that would be.
Oh, yeah. One for eternity.
One for eternity, right. Yeah. So what are you investing in? In your background with me and our background together, as we've looked at our finances over our lives, where have we placed our emphasis on how we spend our finances?
Well, we took seriously many, many years ago about tithing. And that became a real priority for us early on in our married life. And so without even thinking about anything else, we did our tithe. And I remember there was one time, I wasn't working and you were, and we needed new tires, and oh my, it's like, where's that money going to come from? And then there was a dividend check from our insurance company. And it was for the exact same amount for those tires.
Yep.
It was such God's provision. And so when we've written the checks for church and for ministry, I've never looked back, because I felt that that was, God gave us these resources and we need to use them for His glory.
Yeah. I remember when we used to give weekly and we put our envelope in, I always enjoyed dropping that envelope in the plate, because I felt like we were investing in some way, shape, or form in eternity, whether it would be for the local congregation and however they needed it, or whether it might be for a missionary who was serving in Africa or somewhere else. And I too remember that time when I think we had just first started a tithe, and we weren't sure where the money for the tires were going to come from, and it was a check for almost exactly that amount. And we just felt like our decision was verified or ratified.
God honored.
God honored, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Now, I have always enjoyed each year, somewhere around November or so, when we sit down and we say, okay, who gets what this next year? And we've been blessed for so many years to be able to oftentimes increase our giving because of what God has done for us, not because of anything I think that we have done, except maybe trying to be good stewards of what He's given us. Yeah. Well, the second question that Jeremy addressed was, what are you gazing at? What are you gazing at? How'd you react to that?
Well, I always like to look at the message to see if it has some unique way of phrasing those that concept. And so I just want to read that verse from the message because it really spoke to me. It said, "Your eyes are windows into your body. If you open your eyes wide in wonder and belief, your body fills up with light. If you live squinty-eyed in greed and distrust, your body is a dank cellar. If you pull the blinds on your windows, what a dark life you will have." I look at what's going on in our country, and I don't have to enumerate all the things that look so dark and so gloomy. And so it is easy to slip into thinking gloom, despair, and agony on me, as they used to say on Hee Haw. And that's the way it looks when I don't look up. Because I am a professed believer who says God has a plan. He's in charge of what goes on down here. And I need to look at what's going on down here through His lenses. And so when I look up, I see His provision, His hope, His love for me and for mankind. And that's where I need to have my focus.
And it's pretty easy to gaze at the darkness these days, isn't it? And so it's so important that we have that kind of a mindset. Is there any way that you keep your gaze upward? Anything you do on a daily basis or a regular basis that helps with that?
Well, I spend time with God, and we talk about what's going on in the world and about His focus and about how I need to not just look at it and be in despair. It's just a conversation with Him so that I can see that His promises are true, because so many of them have been fulfilled. And we can see that He is good and great and loves us.
Yeah, I think that's good, and I think that, I try to do that some as well. And we spend some time together in the Word and prayer and too, which has really been good.
And I think that's good too. We encourage each other. And so when I go off the rails about something, you're there to help me see God's perspective, and vice versa. And so it's good to have a partner in prayer.
Yeah, it really is. I really appreciate that. The third question that Jeremy asked us to consider was, who are you serving? Of course, we serve God with our time and our treasures and our talent. So, and we serve others with that too. So how would you react to that question? Who are you serving?
It's always important to look at. And again, I'll go back to just the unique wording that the Message has for that particular part of the passage. It says, you can't worship two gods at once. Loving one God, you'll end up hating the other. Adoration of one feeds contempt for the other. You can't worship God and money both. And that's because when you start trying to worship them both, there comes a point where each one of them has they want you to make a choice. And those choices will be divergent. So you can't serve them both. And you have to decide what is going to be the primary operating system in my life.
Yeah.
You know, is God going to rule, or is the things of our earthly system going to take over? And so it's important for me to say, I want to be part of what God's doing. I want my decisions to line up with His Word. Now, that means that I have to know what that word is, and I have to spend time. And so that when a decision comes my way, I just can't be thinking about it on the fly. And so that I have to have those things settled so that I can move forward with godly decisions.
Yeah.
And to be able to serve Him. And so that has been a priority in my life, is just to continue to understand who God is and what He wants me to do. He loves me, and He wants the best for me. But it also means I have the responsibility to pay attention and to actually act the way that would be best interest for me, and that's a godly way.
And sometimes we're torn between those two masters. If we don't have what I call a biblical worldview, a way of looking at the world through the Bible's lens, then I can easily go off track. I can easily come to a fork in the road and take the wrong one. So it's almost a daily basis, isn't it?
It is.
Who am I serving today in this situation? And there's not oftentimes enough time to pray or to go into a deep meditation about it. You have to make a decision. And by having that biblical basis, I think it really helps us in that regard.
You really have to know who you serve.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, we're starting off in a brand new year. I hope it's better than last year for us, for our church, for our community, for the world. But we don't have any control over that, do we?
No, we don't.
Our role is to know where our treasure is stored, and not in a place where moth and rust destroy, to know what we're gazing at, and to not serve the wrong master. And I think that's good focus for us as we walk this path together of serving Him.
Absolutely.
So thanks for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.